Good evening and welcome to the City of Franklin Council meeting. We're going to start tonight with the continuance of a public hearing that is scheduled for January 2nd at 6 p.m. for the conditional use permit for the City of New Franklin and Mason's Cove LLC. We had some additional information we wanted to consider at the last meeting, and I can start off with if the applicant wants to say anything further on this before we get into the discussion.
Yeah, I would say unfortunately council can't be here, but on behalf of the city, first of all, I appreciate the hard look that has been taken on this. There was really considerable time spent with planning and zoning. I think all sides were vetted, and you have before you what their recommendation is. The council spent a great deal of time 2 weeks ago, and that's appreciated as well. All I would say is that as it relates to the conditions that were recommended by planning and zoning unanimously, that I think it's a good idea to expand that to a fence and a barrier. There have been some suggestions of what that might look like. I'm 100% confident that it'll be done in a first-class manner. If for any reason it wasn't consistent with our zoning code, then they would have to come to BZA for a variance. So that would also be vetted in terms of what they wanted to do. I know there's ongoing conversations relative to how that might look, and to make certain that that there was some foliage, etc., on the residential side. So I think that condition can be fully satisfied the way it's presented by planning and zoning. And the second condition related, well, the first condition has to do with the site plan that's a major site plan review. That's just standard. But it'll be another opportunity to look, for planning and zoning to look at the how that's going to be used, et cetera, et cetera. The other condition was the use of Mason Cove sound system with the sound limiter. And again, I think that that's a workable condition. As an adjunct, there is, there are the agreement that all the vendors have to sign, but most importantly is the fact that the sound system is limited to Mason Cove sound system. And they have the ability to monitor, they have the ability to shut off if there's a problem, which they've actually done in the past. So I think that one also, the way it's written, is a workable solution. I think once we get into decibels, we get into really sticky area, tough to enforce, relatively vague, and perhaps not helpful for a number of reasons that council talked about the last time around. So it's the city's position, and we continue to ask council to approve that unanimous recommendation from planning and zoning with the conditions that were presented in the referral to you, the recommendation to you. And I don't know if Mr. Cannon wants to add anything.
No, the only thing I would add to this to start is just sorry I couldn't make last meeting. I was out of state and could not change travel plans quick enough to get back. But I think Mayor Adamson said pretty much everything. I am available if there's any questions or if you guys have anything beyond that. We would just like to ask that no additional conditions be put on. We feel we're doing a good job of policing and have very strict rules ourselves that go well beyond the city ordinance and what our contract already allows us to do over there. So we feel we continue to improve on those year by year, and we'll continue to do so. Definitely have no problem with the fence or greenery. We already have a large set of trees on the southeast portion of the property that we planted. Those are already growing extremely fast. They'll end up growing up to 40 feet. And we do think a fence is a great idea, but my council and the council for a few of the neighbors have been talking, and we are 100% okay with continuing that discussion before we make a final decision and working something that's amicable on both sides. We will probably put a sound damping material that'll be on our side, but they won't be able to see or do anything else, just to make that even a little bit easier over there. And then we'll definitely have discussions and try to set up additional meetings to go over types of landscaping and have full intentions of, especially McCormick's property, which is directly next door, having them have a say in what we're putting on that side of the fence for sure.
I would finally be remiss if I didn't recall that this venue is exempt from the noise ordinance, consistent with prior action of a previous council based upon legislation that was introduced by Mayor Bowles. And so entertainment venues, not just this one, are exempt from the noise ordinance from noon until 10 p.m., 7 days a week. What's in place at the Tudor House is more restrictive in the sense that Sunday through Thursday voluntarily stop at 9 p.m. But I think it's important that any action that will be taken here potentially impacts not just this entertainment venue, but every other entertainment venue on the lakes. And given the fact that there's been due consideration by previous council to exempt entertainment facilities, I think that's a very pertinent point as well. Thank you.
All right, so I know the last 2 weeks we've had a lot of time to review. We reached out to Mason's Code. I think a handful of us have, at one point or another, went out there, walked the site, talked about some options with the operator out there. One of the things, we got this presentation from council, from the residents, and one of the things that I'm having an issue with is like the 1 decibel reading for the August 17th for the wedding. It shows 106 on there. How do we know where that 106 came from? Because that night there was a storm. And then when you look at the graph, that 106 isn't even reflected on the graph. So it would have had to be either well after that, I think it's a 2 p.m. cutoff, or 2 a.m. cutoff, or before that 8 p.m. So I'm just wondering, was that the storm that caused that, or?
If you're asking about the report and the
Yes.
reference
That
that
would be
it's,
before, it was before 8 p.m.
Okay,
I
so,
believe that shows from 8 to 10 on the graph. It is before 8 p.m. if I recall. So yes, in theory, 106 could be thunder, although I don't recall it raining that day. But I do believe there was a live band that day. And we were all outside in my backyard because it was my anniversary. So I recall it not even being 8 p.m. and it being very loud.
as I did with some of the other ones, I went back and I went to the AccuWeather site, pulled up historical, and there was a large storm over us that day. So,
it could be, I don't want to guess and tell you that I know as I'm sitting here right now, but again, I guess I would just draw your attention to the fact that this, what you're referring to is where it says the peak decibel reading, which obviously could be a spike on something, but we provided you with the actual, lengthy graph from, like I said, from 8, and Mrs. Evans said, from 8 p.m. until 11, so you can kind of track. We're really talking about consistent volume issue is really what we're doing, and that's why I didn't want to mislead and simply, we could have stopped, I guess, at take 5 or 6 and left it look like, hey, there's, it was 106 that whole night. That's not what we're trying to say. We're just trying to show you that, but that was the peak reading on that day in question. But that's probably the answer is that it may have been outside of that time if it doesn't show up on the graph. So.
anybody else have any comments on this or thoughts?
Not at this point. Is the other people have comments?
Yeah, I may have just a few things, and I don't want to belabor everything we talked about last time. I echo Mayor Adams' comments. I appreciate all the effort and time that you put into this. Although I'm not sure any of my clients were contacted over the last 2 weeks. Was anyone contacted? I don't think so. But a few things, I guess, just briefly. The conditions, I guess, it's not just briefly about the conditions. The fence itself, we have had discussion with Mason's Codes Council and plan to continue to do that. I will tell you, I was a little bit disappointed only in the sense that during our discussion, there's always been kind of this understanding we've had, and I think it has been presented here, that there's all these evergreens that were added and that the sound wall would be placed on the north side of the evergreens between Mason, essentially so that my clients wouldn't have to look at the fence itself. But Yesterday, I got an email from the council, and unfortunately, they're saying that that's not the case now, that they want to put this 8 to 10 foot wall literally just feet off my client's patio, and the evergreens will be between the wall and their property. They said they have some reasons for that. I got just a couple of quick photos. I didn't make copies for everybody, but just to kind of show. I mean, here's the existing fence that is there now, that as my client testified to, was put there with agreement of the city a number of years ago. That's where the fence line is, and this is the row of the evergreens you can see that were planted there, which my clients appreciate and appreciate that happening. But we've been told and we're under the impression that the fence would go on this side of those evergreens. You can imagine why we would want that to happen, but now, yesterday we were told, no, that's not the case. We have to run it down. We're going to replace this fence, run it there, which, I mean, I guess all that really counts as now is the event center has nice greenery between their property and the fence. So I guess all I'm saying about that is we would like, to the extent that there's this condition that there needs to be a fence there, we'd like to see it say that it should be mutually agreeable, the placement and the fence between both parties. Just as the original one that was put there was mutually agreeable, I understand, between the Farmers and the city on that property. So hopefully we can get there, but right now we have a sense that what's going to happen is it's just going to benefit their property. We're not going to get any benefit of these evergreens, and instead we're going to be looking at this solid fence. And I had a picture of an example that they had sent to us, and it wasn't very, unfortunately I didn't grab it before I walked out, it wasn't very sightly, I'll just say. The sound control issue, the last issue, just two things on that. One, I go back to what we talked about last time. I mean, right now, it's a condition without a meaning, in my opinion. And I hope you all agree with that. I mean, it just simply says that they're going to limit it with their system and their sound compressor and sound limiter, but it doesn't say what that means, what that is. And so, again, we've asked for there to be some sort of limitation put there. We did get the data from the weekend when the Masons Cove did in fact do the sound testing and equipment. So I did, in fact, for this, I'll give it to you. Again, earlier in the summer, I think this was in May 31st, and this is one we said we thought, I'll just let you guys pass it down. But, just pictures of them putting the sound equipment up where it was, just, next to the information property and what the reading showed, and much more in line with what we were saying before, that it seemed to be a little quieter during the beginning months of the summer than it was later on. If you look at that data, I think there's about a 15-minute period between, I think it's about 9:30 and 9:45 where things got up a little above the 65 decibel level. But for the most part, when you look at that, it was pretty consistent, 65 or lower across there. And again, that's the data they gave you from their report on that day. And that's Victor Shaw, he was there putting up the equipment on that day, and that's what our sound equipment shows from that same single day.
Is this fence that's there presently?
Yeah,
Is
yes.
that right on the line?
Yes, that fence was installed.
So that is right on the line.
It was agreed between my relatives, the prior owners, and Al Bolas and the committee. I don't think it came to city council, and it was a city installed fence right on the property line.
That is property line. That's just what I wanted.
Yeah, and it sits about 5 feet from our patio.
And they are not going to do landscaping on both sides of the fence?
They have, in fairness, they have offered to say they would do some landscaping on my client's property.
Mhm.
Again,
Actually, it would not be
it would
on your
be-
property if they moved that in. It would actually still be on city property, I think.
Which is what we would see, because if
Yes.
they simply had put it on the other side of the arborvitae that's there, probably isn't much more need, other than we could have asked if they have more going up the.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You would want it on yours, but it would technically, am I correct in that? Unless they put the fence right where this one is, it
It'd be
would
on city
technically
property.
be on city property. So anything they landscape, you would benefit from it, it would still be on city property.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
That's what I thought, that they would move that in and then do,
I don't think there's any requirement in the condition right now that it says any of that, though.
no, I don't think it does. I think it says just a fence.
I would just reinforce what Mr. Hobson said. It seems like all parties are willing to talk about a fence and try and come to something mutually agreeable. We would hope that that would be part of the condition, is that if you deem it necessary to have a different fence with a barrier, that we only put that out that we can all agree to where it should be and what it looks like and how it's landscaped around it.
So if we were to require a fence and there wouldn't be a mutually agreed upon fence, how would we resolve that? Because I mean, ultimately it's the city property. How would we resolve I'm assuming it'd be the aesthetic, would be the issue.
Yeah, you've walked the property and you realize, and you saw from that picture, that if there were an 8 to 10 foot fence that came right down along that property line, we would be squeezed in, there'd be no airflow. Our view of the lake, we'd go from having a view like this of the lake to a view like this. And we also have some concerns about, we've talked about this before, so I won't belabor it, but having the police be able to look over into our property during events. So, to your question, I think we probably can come to some agreement. Something right, if the mayor is adamant that putting it right on the property line, then I think it will be challenging, and we would have to challenge it probably pretty hard. If there's a way to find a fence that can be offset on the north side of those arborvitae, or maybe just inside those arborvitae on the south side, and it runs up diagonally and then meets up with the property line up by the newly constructed bathroom buildings, that's a whole different story, because quite frankly, if a fence were put in coming down, if you started at the bathroom buildings and then started diagonally in towards the arborvitae and headed towards the lake, that curvature of that fence in would also help with some noise going over to the Pinto properties. Not completely, but it would help. And then it wouldn't destroy our value of our property, our living ability. So I think we should make every effort to try and come to an agreement.
I want to point out, just for clarification, the mayor is not only not adamant about placing the fence on the property line. I've never even spoken as to where the fence ought to be, except to say it ought to be on city property. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that somehow I was adamant about putting it on the property line. That won't make sense.
I thought you had, so my apologies.
Not a problem. I just wanted to clarify that. And I think Mr. Toddy made a good point, and it'd be wonderful if the parties could agree, but then what if they can't? And I think that's what the zoning code's for, and that's what the BZA is for. This is a fence that likely is going to be higher, taller than what the code provides. So I expect that we're going to be going into the BZA for a variance. And there'll be an opportunity for hearing there, and I think that's where that should be the arbiter of the resolution relative to the fence and the barrier. And I don't mean to be snippy about any of this, and I apologize if I have been. I've seen what Mr. Cantor has done there. I have every confidence that what's suggested is going to be aesthetically pleasing and consistent as best as possible. We've already talked about, again, putting foliage and talking with the residents on the other side about what they'd like to see on the other side of the fence, all of it on city property. But when we talk about agreements and how long all of this might take, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's an event center that's going to be built. And that event center is not going to go forward. Matter of fact, we just are dealing with the statements of qualifications for the contractor. There's been a lot of work put into this, and this is going to be a beautiful venue, but that's not going to happen until this issue is resolved. And so to suggest that we can go to the drawing table and have a give and take, and maybe a month or 2 or 3 from now we figure out what we're doing with this, is not in the best interest of the city from the mayor's perspective. And I think the language that's there, given the, if you add the barrier to it and then leave it to the BZA when they consider a variance, I think we'll end up with something that's really nice. I also want to mention again that, as Mr. Cantor talked about, nobody's required this or asked about it, but he's on his own has talked about putting some a sound barrier, fabric, etc., on the city side of the fence, so that we make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing, but also that we do the best we can relative to minimizing the sound intrusion.
Just a quick question, because one thing I guess I don't know, and I don't mean any disrespect by asking this, I'm just curious. Does the city actually get more once the event center, I mean, is the rent going up when the event center gets built, or is there any change in with how the city?
No, the agreement with the city is that the Masons Cove retains the revenues from the rentals until they recoup their capital cost. And at a point in time when that capital cost has been recouped, then the city will get a percentage of the rentals. But throughout all of it, the city owns any and all capital improvements become the property of the city.
Not being part of their discussions, I can't add any real fact to this, but it would seem to me like allowing it to, the conversations to continue over a normal amount of time, over the next month and a half, whatever it takes to come to the right answer. I would find that hard to get, that's going to get in the way of approving an event center. So this is a fence on the very south side of the property with an event center over 200 yards or 150 yards over on the north side of the property. I think there's a way to make both of these work where if they want to move forward with their approvals on the event center, that's fine. But we can still have reasonable conversations on the fence.
And just speak to that just a second. The mayor, I think, was talking about a different timing on that. As far as the fence goes, I think it's very clear that both of us will continue working with them on something. There are conditions that will also determine where the fence goes. There's buried utilities over there and electric right-of-ways, so there's minimal spaces to put this. But without getting zoning approval, we're going to have to do a minimal fence over there, which I don't think will be as effective. So there is cause for both sides to work together, because I think a little bit taller fence that we can put a sound barrier on will help their property and hopefully make them a little bit happier, more comfortable down the long run, which will be less problems for us. So there's benefit on both sides for us to work together. So I do feel that, at least from my side, just to state it, that we have full intention of working with them and coming up and trying to be collaborative on what goes over there. And if we don't find something conforming, it has to go to zoning and we start this process over. So there is benefit on our part and my part specifically to try to make that work. And I've been working hard to come up with different sketches and different layouts and different ways to get property all the way up past the restroom building. So just for Mr. McCormick's sake, I have no intention of just cutting off, communications. There's a benefit on both sides to continue that. And we've been trying to think outside of the box beyond what you guys could enforce, what we could do possibly with them as my company on the side, stuff that the city can't do to help them with even more plannings on their side. So we're trying to think outside of the box there. So just for the record, we have full intention to continue those regardless of how this goes. I think it's beneficial for both sides to, work through that and start, just a path to a better relationship and working with each other. So we fully plan on doing that going forward.
So one of my questions kind of goes back to Mr. Cantor. Is it possible with the buried utilities and stuff there to follow the south side of the arborvitae with the fence?
Well, depending on what you want for the fence. So the trees that we planted there on purpose were the Thuja green giants. So those grow at a very rapid pace. They've grown about 6 feet this year already. They'll grow up to about 40 feet high and they get about 15 feet wide. So we planted those with the purpose further off the property line. So if we had to do a fence, originally the thought was to go down the property line where the original fence was. To the north side, it's slightly harder. There are utilities that come through there. First Energy buried all the existing telephone poles and everything that came off of that. And then there's runs that go back up to the new electric for the restroom building over there. But on the back side, to where the telephone pole is, they're going to need some space to grow. In that area, we haven't had it staked off yet. I'm open in that area to whatever works on either side of it. One of our original thoughts about doing this is when this fence originally came up to zoning way back in the day, they had mentioned some issues. I believe it was your father, Mr. McCormick, said that they didn't want a fence next to another fence because they were worried about the upkeep in between. So our initial thoughts were just to have the fence on the property line and work with them for plantings on their side where they could control their side, and all the sound barriers would be on our side, and then we could control that side. And there wouldn't be a no man's land in between there, that we can both maintain to whatever level they wanted to be on there. So that's just our initial thoughts. We can still workshop that together and figure out what it is. That's just where that thought process came from, was the original comments that they were worried about what was in between that space if we put it right on the hill that's already there, and then had a 4 to 5 foot section that would be hard to get into, maintain from either sides with a fence in there. So that's kind of the thought process on it. If trees push up against the fence, it's not the end of the world. So it's, that's not a big deal. I don't think that's going to be something that we have a huge problem. Putting them on the north side of the fence down there is going to be restrictive and in certain parts for sure because of the utilities that are in there. We've already looked into that, and we have a right of way that we have to stick out of once we buried all those. But as far as right on the property line and in there, we have to have the OOPS do the utility segment, and then we're completely open to working with them. But that wasn't just to push it all the way over and not worry about it. That was actually off of other Mr. McCormick's recommendations last time is why we said that. So we're open to moving them back and forth and finding something in there completely.
Well, and the concern that I have is if we were to put the fence on the north side of the existing arborvitae, we're eliminating any of the benefit those trees would provide for sound deadening.
Right.
So that's where I would think on the south side would give us the benefit of both the fence and the sound deadening.
Yeah, and that's where, even the design of the fence, we picked one that, was sustainable and had horizontal wood slats, and there's reasons why they have different sound benefits, and we've seen a lot out that look. There's multiple options that we can get to on those. And I have mock-ups with lighting and other things in front of that, but I think look great, but what I think may be different from what they think. So we're open to those conversations. We didn't go with the cheapest by far if you look at it. We went with something that I thought was aesthetic that would work on both sides. The thought process on ours was to have a nice horizontal cedar plank fence with aluminum poles, so it maintained itself over time. And then the sound fabric isn't attractive. It's like black rubber. But that would be on the city side of the fence, so they would never see any of that, and be sandwiched in between the trees. Where if it went on the far side, you'd be looking like at a black rubber fence, which I don't think is in the best interest of the city. So working in between those two makes a difference. And the sound dampening, I know it's not a condition, but the reports from the company that we're looking at, they've had a ton of use with those recently for pickleball courts. Pickleball courts are becoming huge, and the sound is crazy. And they're talking major sound dampening abilities. And for the McCormick family that sits out there that says that that's one of the problems, I think that this will do a considerable difference to help that portion. So we're, willing to do the extra expense to have that in there, but that's why we were trying to sandwich it in. But to Mr. McCormick's point about, feeling boxed in, I think we can work on that. There's like 6 or 7 feet between the fence and the arborvitaes right now. We just have to work out how the drainage goes in there so we don't create a problem, that water goes, the wrong direction, and make sure utilities aren't there. But there's wiggle room in there. I don't think this is a do or die where we have to do on the corner or it's nothing. I don't foresee that argument coming in the future.
And just to tack onto that, I think where that ends up, I think we do need to discuss landscaping on our side of that. I think can be discussed as well, because I don't think there's any need to plant another row of 40-foot arborvitae on the south side of that fence, in between the fence and our property. It does need to be landscaped appropriately, so we don't have to look at that fence. But there are much smaller arborvitae that will not interfere with the electric lines that could be,
you're not going
from
to
a setting perspective, can look nice, easily maintained. They're not going to grow out 10 feet over and be right up against our property. So if we put green giants in there, all we've done is switch one problem for another, which is instead of a solid fence, we've got these arborvitae completely blocking our view as well. So there's our options that need to be talked about.
Yeah, we were even thinking that there's a lot of tall grasses, like the Carl Forrester grasses, and mixture of those, and different things that you can put in there to soften it up, that you're not going to have the issue of them all of a sudden encroaching 15 feet into their property when they grow full size. So yeah, we're definitely aware of that. That's not a problem.
And the buffering we're talking about is just down near McCormick's property, correct? It's not the entire length of the fence?
For the sound dampening?
For the buffering, the landscape?
Yes, correct. It would basically be where the current trees are right now, going because that goes up about 30 feet, somewhere around there.
I think we should talk about that, because I think we'd like to see it up further. I think you could take it up and intersect with up near the building that you constructed, and then run along the property line.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. There's those two tall trees there,
Right.
kind of deadening just past those is kind of what you were thinking.
Past those being west of those.
Yeah, yes, right to the edge of the building.
Something to that effect, we need to look
Kind
at
of
it
following that
together.
swale down.
We need to look at it on a sketch together.
Yep. I think we're thinking the same thing over there.
So the existing arborvitae's only go up to the backside of Mr. McCormish's house, while the current fence, although not noise dampening at all, runs the entire length of the property. The new fence, we would be looking at going basically all the way up to the top of the property and removing the existing fence. Is that what?
Possibly. We don't know for sure what we'd be removing or what would be on there. But we would think to take the new fence up to at least the restroom, the building over there.
That would serve possibly to cut down some of the noise that may travel back towards the community.
And just from our perspective, if council and Mason Cove thought that having a higher fence along the property line up past the restroom building made sense on the property line, that probably wouldn't be a big problem for us, because that's not where we live. There's our house right on the lake, there's a parking pad, there's a garage, and the garage sits in front of where the restroom building sits for the most part. And then we have, I don't know how many feet, but let's call it another 75, 80 feet up beyond that of a field in the back. We don't live up in that field, so if they wanted to move the fence to the property line up in that area, that's less impactful for us.
Mr. Ullman, what are your thoughts?
I'm looking at Google Earth right now, trying to kind of, he's talking all this stuff. I haven't been on his property, so I'm Google Earth it all right now.
Mr. Wolf?
It sounds like we have two parties that are willing to work, and I'm sort of on the mutually exclusive, and if you guys can't work it out, then it goes through zoning appeals, is that right? I mean, I know, I don't know either one of you very well at all, but it seems like you two reasonable individuals that are talking respectfully, and we want to get this resolved. I'm sort of on the mutually agreed upon fence along with those other conditions.
I'm looking at the decibel ratings that you guys provided us, and it looks like we're fairly on the line with some going over once in a while, although it's kind of hard to tie that directly to the showers, or if that's a boat or thunder or something else, as you said. But it seems to me that if we had a fence and a buffer on that fence on our side, or that would serve to cut down probably that 65 decibel that's kind of hanging around just a little bit more. So,
I would just say,
Go ahead.
I would just say that it's yet to be seen whether that really would make it better for our property. We would hope so. But for the people that live over on Pino, where that noise travels across the lake, it's going to have no bearing on improving their situation.
Judy?
You know what, I think they can work it out, and it does look like you are planning on keeping your contracts exactly the way they are.
Yeah, we make adjustments every year, but they're not going down. If anything, they become more strict every year. Like for this year, we're not doing any weddings, Monday through Wednesday, throughout any of the stuff, and most of our Thursdays don't have anything. So we continue to get, just to make life easier, and I think that's going to continue going down. Nothing will ever go backwards on it.
What are your thoughts on the fence?
The fence, I like the idea, and I think these clients will love it when it's put up with the landscaping stuff. I think they'll like it very much. I think it's going to give them more privacy than they ever had before. And I think they'll enjoy it, and maybe they'll be able to enjoy their patio.
Barry?
Yeah, I've been to the property and looked at things, and it sounds to me like both parties want to work this fence issue out, and landscaping. I think we should move ahead with those conditions. put the fence in place and the landscaping as a condition. Let those two parties come to some meeting of their minds, exactly what it's gonna look like. And if there's a zoning issue, they'll go in front of the BZA, they look at all the zoning guidelines and come up with a suitable answer.
Jim?
I agree.
I'd like to add the addition of the fence with landscaping by the Tudor house on both sides with greenery that is even, matching like we spoke of last. Public hearing would be a nice addition, yes.
Public hearing for
The last meeting. We spoke of last meeting.
Question for you, Mayor. With the two parties talking, is there a benefit to have you part of those conversations that maybe help facilitate? Or is that needed? And where I'm thinking about is to help keep it on a timeline that doesn't have a negative impact.
When we talk about the timeline, it's important to understand that we really can't separate out the fence issue from the conditional use of the property. And the conditional use application is to conduct indoor, outdoor, commercial, recreational. And so, permit me, I think I maybe know where you're going. So, any delay relative to determining what's going on with the fence, and if that involves a give and take, and what's it going to be, what kind of vegetation, that delays the entire process, because that delays the granting of the conditional use. What needs to happen is the granting of the conditional use with the condition relative to the fence and the vegetation. And there's two options. There's two alternatives here. I'm happy to help in any way that I can help to try to resolve this thing. I may not be the best guy, I'm not exactly a green fun guy, but I'll help any way I can help. But there's recourse. If you make that condition of a fence and a barrier, and that's a condition, and that it's aesthetically pleasing, some type of a language to that effect. If it's going to exceed 6 feet, it's going to have to go. The plans are going to have to. There's going to have to be a request for a variance, and there'll be an opportunity to vet that over at the BZA. If it's not, and it goes up, I mean, there's always recourse for the residents to come back and say you violated the condition because it's not aesthetically pleasing, and so it can come back here. And I'm not trying to find a way to delay this, but until there's the granting of the conditional use, the event center is on hold, and that's not going to happen until this part happens.
So I wasn't going that route.
All right, I'm sorry. Well, you got 5 minutes from me. I apologize.
So my thought was, if we were to have the fence as part of the conditional use, and we, in good faith, we're wanting the two parties to have an agreeable location of fence, buffering, stuff like that. Since this is ultimately city property, would it be prudent to have a representative of the city there just to kind of shepherd this along and make sure that we come up with an agreed upon fence?
I got an idea of that, and what I would suggest is this, that we consider, and you'll be hearing more to say, but Fred Guerra, who now has been working with us, has a wealth of experience in all of these issues, 40 years of zoning between Barberton and Cottle Falls. I've talked briefly to him about this. He's a consultant for us at this point in time. We could expand his duties to ask him to serve in that capacity because he's been hand-on on these types of issues for 40 years. So if you just said a city representative, we will certainly provide one. I think Fred would probably be the best because he's kind of objective too. I mean, he's not an employee here, and he'll tell you the truth. So, but yeah, a city representative would be fine.
Wouldn't Irv be our city representative? And we put on him to expedite it as quickly as possible to come to an agreement.
Sure, he'll keep it. That's where conversations. Well, and also Mr. Cantor's counsel. So the attorneys from both sides will keep trying to move the train down the tracks.
Yeah, and
everybody wants this resolved.
Yeah, that's where I was coming from on my question here, is because we got two parties that appear to want to work together, and really it just seems like the only thing is just an agreement on the look and location of it. And I just didn't want to get us into a situation where, we would make a condition, and then 3 months from now, there's still no resolution as to where the location and the offering.
Yeah, I certainly would. I have no. I cannot foresee that happening. We want this thing to move.
Yeah, Mr. Powell, speak on that too. I think we have next Wednesday, the council's talking together on that, and then we're gonna give up some sketches, and then if Mr. McCormick wants to come in, well, I think we can lead that pretty quick between our two parties, and then present something, to the city to make sure they're okay like we've done in the past. But I think,
We'd like to have this up before
yeah,
the season.
we're gonna definitely try to get it up before the season. I think Mr. McCormick would like to, I'm not gonna speak for him, but I'm guessing that he wants a resolution to it quick. So there's no intention for us to slow play it by any means. We already have meetings next week, so we can do that and then present something to the city too. Or either party can go if they feel it's moving slow to mediate, to ask somebody to mediate possibly.
And I just want to make sure, because one of the comments I heard last meeting was it just kind of get passed on from department
Sure.
to department. And I was just trying to put some sort of a resolution in there to where it's no longer passed on. We get an answer.
Sure.
So that was just the thought behind that comment. So are you guys okay with changing it from landscaping or fence to landscaping and fence?
Yes, yes.
Ms. Walden?
What will sound?
Oh, it would sound, I can pull it up here.
In just a second.
Yeah, it says a fence or barrier shall be installed. We make that or to and.
Should we say sound barrier? Barrier can be physical.
Well, the barrier could also be the landscape.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and suggest you have language that says sound barrier and landscaping.
That's what I was thinking, but it's a word
The fabric material in a sense.
Is that good for, what would you even describe?
Sound barrier.
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
Sound material.
Yes, sound damping material.
fencing and sound barrier.
And landscaping.
And landscaping, yeah. It is,
Fencing, landscaping, and barrier.
And sound.
Sound damping screens is what they are.
They call it acoustic block, just in
Acoustical. Tetra.
All right, so would we just amend for condition two?
Yes.
Okay. So I need a motion to do that.
I'll second.
Okay. So Kelly, we're looking to, let me read what this is saying and we'll make a motion on that. That way it's official here. So condition two would change from a fence or barrier shall be installed to ensure security and privacy for adjoining residential property. We would amend that to read a fence, landscaping, and sound barrier shall be installed to ensure security and privacy for the adjoining residential property. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a first?
Wait, hold on a
Can
second.
I just ask you guys something about the aesthetically pleasing fence? As Mayor Edmondson mentioned, that gives the neighbor some recourse if it can't be worked out. So,
It would
or
be
something
aesthetically
aesthetically
pleasing
harmonious
to all
with the neighborhood,
parties.
something along those lines, just add those words in there. Sure.
The word harmonious is used
It's going to go to the BZA anyways, correct?
Yeah, yes.
And is that part of their condition or criteria?
Harmonious is part of the code.
Well, they're gonna have to submit.
But I don't know if that's one of the conditions as it relates to the,
We can add
I think one of the conditions is got to be harmonious to the area, isn't it?
I believe
Correct.
so. It uses the,
So yeah, there's an actual clause in their thing that says it's got to be harmonious to the neighborhood and area and so on.
Well, that would just be the fence itself, that wouldn't be any landscaping
Right.
beside the fence. So maybe we could say, instead of just landscaping, we could say aesthetically pleasing to both
all
parties, or
parties.
something like that, aesthetically pleasing landscaping. I realize that's kind of vague,
I mean,
I think if you leave it aesthetically pleasing as opposed to both parties, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want that, because now we're back to
right,
Just-
right.
having.
We're fine with it, just aesthetically pleasing.
Okay.
So we'd add in fencing, aesthetically pleasing landscaping.
Yes.
Okay, hold on here. All right, so let me try this again. would change condition 2 from a fence or barrier shall be installed to ensure security and privacy for adjoining residential properties to a fence or a fence, aesthetically pleasing landscaping, and a sound barrier shall be installed to ensure security and privacy for adjoining residential properties. Does that sound, okay, do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
I have a first. I have a second. Kelly?
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
All right. And then we vote on this?
Yes.
So do I have a motion to?
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission for conditional use as stated with the amendment.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second?
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Conclude our public hearing. All right, we'll continue on with our committee meetings. You've got 4 first readings. We'll start off with resolution 25-03, Mr. Stiles.
I'll open up comments on the Public Utilities Commission at 6:47. The first resolution is resolution number 25-R03. It's a resolution supporting the Ohio Municipal League's challenge of AT&T's tariff application at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and declaring an emergency. This came up just this week. AT&T is proposing that in all the communities it serves, that if there needs to be any movement of AT&T utilities, that the city would be bearing that it's their right of way. There is a group of cities that are opposing that amended tariff, and New Franklin is offering to join that. So I want to vote on that.
So I think one of the things that's important to take note here is this is the foot in the door. And if AT&T were to get something like this approved, that opens the door up for First Energy, it opens the door up for East Ohio Dominion, which is now Enbridge. It opens the door for all the cable, anybody that has something on a pole or underground. That opens up the ability for them to charge back to the city the cost to relocate those if we were to widen the road or make some sort of improvement through there. Currently, if we're doing a road project and something needs moved, that's at the cost of that utility. And this is a huge change, and I would support partnering up with the Ohio Municipal League on this.
Everybody agrees well?
You okay waiving the 3 on this one?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
I'm just going to take the other 2.
Sure, we'll jump on to the supplemental agenda.
Resolution 25-R05.
Next up is resolution number 25-R05, a resolution to contract with OHM Consultants as for the City of New Franklin Water and Sewer Rollins Bundled Water Main Project, and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with OHM Consultants for construction, engineering, and grant administration services, and declaring an emergency. These are just the same sewer and water we've been talking about for months, and we're just into the point now where we want to okay the contract with OHM Consultants. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, and this one specifically is the water project. And this is the one where ODNR's got everybody on a pretty tight clock. And that's why we just got this, actually we went out for a request for qualifications on this, and the timing on that to get that back, and then to score those, and the result being that OHM was selected as a result of that. They will then be doing the construction inspection. You're going to have a separate resolution here in terms of the contractor. And as in all these jobs, the construction inspection is to make sure that it's consistent with what the specs are that is done to the city's requirements. We're very confident with OHM. The cost on that came in at $75,276 for those services. Again, those funds will come from that $970,000 grant.
And again, just to reiterate, this is going to bring clean water to the new visitor center.
Yes.
And along the way, also give opportunity for residents who may have water issues along Rawlins, Latham, and Encino Drives, opportunity to tap into the clean water as we pass by.
Tudor House and St. Luke's as well.
What's the alignment? Does this go through the pavement or is it off to the side in the right of way?
Pavement.
Pavement.
So what is the pavement condition through these areas right now? So what we're going to have now is we're going to have a slot cut right down the road. Is the repair, I'm assuming the repair is part of the project?
They're gonna repair half the lane. Half the lane's gonna get redone.
Half the road or half the lane?
Half the road, I'm sorry, half the road.
We do want to move on this because you have a separate legislation for the bids came in and we got a recommendation for the contractor and we're ready to go on this thing as quick as we can. ODNRs would like to see this water in the ground by May 1st. And so would we, but we need to move it for that purpose.
Very good. We okay with waiving the 3 on this one?
Yeah, and I'd also just like to say, for the residents that may or may not tie in, have the ability to tie in, there is no charge to them unless they choose to tie in. So there's no assessments on priorities.
Finally, for Public Utilities Commission, we have Resolution 25R06, a resolution awarding a bid to H.M. Miller Construction Company for the City of New Franklin for water and sewer Rollins Bundle Water Main Project and declaring that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage. This is just following up, same project. We awarded the contract, or we looked at the contractor, which was 2505, and 06 will be accepting the bid from H.M. Miller Construction. Any comments?
Just like I said, we got some good prices,
Yes.
so I expect it to be higher than that.
And this pricing that we have is going to be recouped by the city by the grant, correct?
All covered under the grant.
All covered under the grant, so.
In fact, we may be able to do even more than we anticipated
That's good.
because we want to use that whole grant up. So,
The number that we have there, is there a contingency included in that?
no. Well, wait a minute. Yes, there is. Yeah, if you look at page 2. The bid came in at $578,180, and we have included, I should have commented on that. We're asking to authorize expenditures not to exceed $635,998. So that's the bid price of $578,180 plus an additional 10% contingency. Separate and apart from those costs are the material costs. And Aqua will be providing materials. There was an element in the bid for the contractors to provide it, and they couldn't come close to matching Aqua's cost. Aqua's cost is going to be about $150,000. Again, that's going to be covered through the grant. In fact, likely that's going to be Aqua's contribution to the project, and probably even a little bit more. So once again, and no cost to the city. But that's a separate component. And when we have that all in agreement form, we'll bring that back to council as well.
This resolution shall be effective immediately, however, it's not calling for an emergency. Do we need to waive the 3 on this one?
Oh, that's just antiquated language, unfortunately. But Section 6 does cover that. And so, yes.
So
It does mention it's an emergency. It'll take effect as soon as you pass it. But we still need to, we would need to waive the 3 readings.
Okay.
To see the night.
Excellent. So this will close the Public Utilities Committee at 6:55.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ullman, resolution 25R04.
Thank you. We'll open up the Streets and Drainage Committee at 6:57, starting with our only resolution, 24R04. A resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with OHM It's different on the OHM Advisors and Engineering and Bidding Services for the 2025 New Franklin paving project and declaring an emergency. So we did this last year with OHM. They did a great job. Most of the mayor said they did a great job. Department head Brian over there said they did a great job, and they've always done a good job for us. So I'm excited for this year. The roads on their first plan will be, this will be a long one for me. Nimisilla Road from Grove Road to Western City limits. Ott Drive from Manchester Road to Terminus. South View Drive from Ott Drive to Terminus. Limbrook Drive from Ott Drive to Terminus. Viceroy Drive from Southview Drive to Terminus. Pillar Avenue from South Turkey Cliff Road to Faith Avenue. Faith Avenue from Pillar Avenue to Terminus. Channel Avenue from Faith Avenue to Terminus. Donna Avenue from Faith Avenue to Terminus. Townsend Avenue from Faith Avenue to Terminus. Bronson Trail from South Turkey Cliff Road to Terminus. Bid alternate number 1 will be Franks Road from Kungle Road to South Cleveland Masson Road, or Skyline Road from Kungle Road to Terminus. As you know, these roads are all more clubbed together. We did the same thing last year. Brian educated me a lot about this last year, is that we keep it all compiled together in similar areas. We don't have to pay movement fees. So it does help keep the costs lower for the city doing roads in a certain area per year. Does anybody?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is this, that OHM provided these services last year, but it was bifurcated. We had a contract with them relative to the bidding, which was $16,500. And then the construction inspection came in at $57,400 for a total of $73,900. By coming to them and combining it at this point in time for those same services, almost 74,000 last year, it's going to be 59,284 this year. So there's a cost savings to us as well.
Any other further comments or questions?
Well, that kind of busted my comments about, I was looking at the numbers and had some questions about it that now I don't, because the savings make sense for us. So I guess my question is, if we're tearing up the roads for the water project, the roads in the neighborhood of where the water project is going, Catalina, Sturgeon, Encino, Barrymore, Hyman, that's the street I live on. Other streets in that area, they're getting close to needing repair, replacement, redone within the next year or two. And if they're only replacing half the road or fixing half the road, would it make sense for us to move the project from the roads currently listed and do this neighborhood this year in conjunction with the water going in and tearing up the road, and then get these other roads next year?
I think we're talking, they're at Catalina right now, Catalina and Encino.
Right,
So
I
we're
understand.
talking about Encino, and then Rollins.
And then I get that.
It's not all those back there.
Right, I get that, but, again, we do neighborhoods as opposed to, and if we're going to tear up the road and fix half of it, some of these roads, why not figure out a way to do the whole area? And, especially the roads that are only going to get half done.
Wouldn't they need to rebid the project?
Well, I don't know. I
think it might be a little late in the game, but it's not entirely a bad idea, but I think it's a little late in the game for it. One of the things I was thinking here is that we'll take a look at how we can utilize these grant funds, and perhaps at least for the roads that are disturbed, maybe we could pay the other half, and at least take care of those with some of this grant money.
Because you might be able to get a per unit price just for contingency to extend that to those areas.
throwing it out there.
Any other questions or comments? Comfortable waiving the 3? Perfect. We will close the Streets and Drainage Committee at 7:02.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the City of New Franklin Council meeting. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
You okay on time?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kelly, if you would, roll call please.
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones? Present. Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present, sir.
Mr. Almond?
Present. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes for the organizational meeting on January 2nd, 2025?
Second.
I have a first and a second.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting on January 2nd, 2025?
Second.
I have a first and a second.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to accept the financials for December 2024?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second, Kelly?
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Now we're into public comments. If you would, if you have anything you'd like to address council with, please state your name, your address, and keep it to 4 minutes, please. Anyone? All right, seeing none. We're going to go into our first reads here. Resolution 25R03, Kelly.
A resolution supporting the Ohio Municipal League's challenge of AT&T's tariff application at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and declaring an emergency.
Do we have a motion to waive the three?
Second.
All right, first and a second.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Motion,
Waive the three.
yeah, that was waived. Do we have a motion to adopt resolution 25R03?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Mr. Almond.
And the second?
Mrs. Jones.
Ms. Jones?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R04, Kelly.
A resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for engineering and bidding services for the 2025 New Franklin paving project and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is assigned to the Streets and Drainage Committee. I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
There's a first and a second.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
I motion to adopt resolution 24R04.
Second.
Have a resolution 25R.
25, yeah?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Resolution 25R05, Kelly.
A resolution to contract with OHM Consultants for New Franklin Water and Sewer Rollins Bundle Water Main Project and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with OHM Consultants for construction, engineering, and grant administration services and declaring an emergency.
Resolution 25R05 was assigned to the Public Utilities Commission. I would like to make a motion to waive the three.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. That's
Just to waive the 3.
Yeah. I'd also like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 25R05.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Resolution 25R06, Kelly.
A resolution awarding a bid to H.M. Miller Construction Company for the city of New Franklin for water and sewer. I don't know what is going on with
That's the
mine.
title, it's a goofy title,
Yeah, the title is just,
but that's the way it has to be, it's fed.
so a resolution awarding a bid to H.M. Miller Construction Company for the city of New Franklin for water and sewer Rollins Bundle Water Main Project and declaring that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. Doesn't sound correct.
Resolution 25R06 was also assigned to the Public Utilities Committee. I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
With the 3 readings waived, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 25R06.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. We got no we got no second or third readings for pending legislation. We're on to our favorite part of the meeting, the mayor's report.
All right, we'll try to go quicker. We got attorneys getting paid by the hour out here.
He's in his
We're
boat.
going to need executive session. Hats off, first of all, to the service department, Brian Kepler, Dale Corley, for the extraordinary work that has been done on the roads in these tricky storms. So blessings to you and your department and everybody in it. Secondly, we were awarded a grant from NOPEC again this year. It's an annual grant, and in this case, it's $8,067. So we've been able to utilize that for lighting related issues, and I'm sure we'll find use for it this year as well. Oh yeah, stay warm, be safe on the ice. We know it's getting colder. And so just a general reminder to everybody, lives were lost out there every year, and some horrible accidents on the snowmobiles, et cetera. So please be safe. The Sister Park workshop is scheduled for next Tuesday at 6:30. And the intention is to try to get the public in here and share with them some of the pre-planning and maybe start to prioritize, get some sense of what people would like to see and in what order they might want to see that, and then also then to try to line up some financing and funding, et cetera. It does so happen that next Tuesday is forecast to be bitterly cold. The temperature's below zero. And it occurred to me in preparation for tonight as to whether or not we might want to move that back a week or two. Council have a thought one way or another on that?
I believe the wind chill is going to be like in the negative double digits, I believe. I remember seeing that like frostbite's like 15 minutes or something.
I don't know what will happen with the school closing, but if that, if it holds true to those dates, so.
I was gonna say, dress warm.
We'll go with the majority. I don't have that. I really don't mind either way.
Is there any reason to put it in?
We can do it, we're ready to go.
Would it put anything off pushing it back at all?
No, I wouldn't.
I don't think so.
I think with the weather, we may not get the turnout.
That's a concern.
Yes,
So that's the whole benefit of this is hearing from the public and hearing what.
We're bringing the consultants in, that was part of the package.
Maybe we'll push it off to a,
All right, I'll put some on the website that we're gonna pick an alternate date. I'll confirm when they can be here, and we'll get it done sometime, within 30 days or so after that. All right. As you all know, and the public may know, that I hope you do because you voted for it, that we moved the primary date into May. That advanced the date for filing of petitions. We talked about it quite a while ago. I haven't talked about it lately. there's still 3 weeks remaining. 3 weeks from the day is the deadline for filing petitions. We have 3 at-large seats, and the mayor's seat is up as well. If anybody was interested and didn't realize the timing, be happy to contact us up here. We'll try to give you as much information as we can. It has been confirmed for me that there will be another candidate running for the mayor's position. And I don't know if there's more or if there's not, but I think that's a good thing. Choice is always a good thing. After considerate thought, I've decided I'm not going to be filing petitions. So I will not be running again. But, so anybody out there that is interested, you still got 3 weeks. And if not, I'm sure the individual that's indicated that intends to be a candidate will do a fine job as well. And that's all I got. We are going to need an executive session, though.
Yes. Thanks for the report. Finance report, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to report on that, Paul. I know Sue's not here.
No, she's dancing as fast as she can, as you know. And I don't want to gloss over that. We closed out the last, 24th. It's no small thing.
Is that what you said?
She has a little respiratory, but she's still working. I talked to her a couple times today, and then she talked to the rest of the staff. So far, so good. We got to get through the rest of the month and get 25 opened up, but it's going well.
Any old business?
I have old business. We're gonna have the farmer's market again, Judy's here, and Terry's going to be helping also, am I correct? For the farmer's market? Yes. Yes. So we're gonna have the farmer's market again. Doesn't that sound strange with all this cold weather to be talking about the farmer's market? But plans for it.
3 months.
Yes, you're right. Couple more months and we'll be ready.
Any other old business? Anybody? All right, any new business?
We're moving the parks meeting until a later date.
Real quick, I'd just like to say, I don't know what to say. Mayor Adamson, I'm surprised with your announcement here this evening. I know you didn't take it lightly to make that decision. I'm disappointed. I think you've done wonderful things for us. I know this isn't your swan song, you still have a whole year left. But I don't want to just gloss over what you just announced. And I know you're making the best decision for you and your family. I appreciate that, but I also appreciate everything you've done for us and getting what we came to do. Thank you.
It's also nice to recognize that before you were mayor, you were a trustee and a councilman for 16 years, is that correct?
Yeah.
That's a long time dedicated to the city, the area you grew up in.
But we got to get through the year, so.
Thanks for that, Jim. I think a few others were going to say something as well that you kind of encompassed it there.
Good job.
Any other new business? Seeing none. Okay, we have a second round of public questions and comments. If anybody has anything that was raised in the meeting you'd like to comment on or ask a question about? Seeing none. All right, we do have a need for an executive session. This is to consider confidential information related to an applicant for economic development assistance. Do you have a motion to enter executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a first and a second?
And we're going to ask
We're
that,
going to invite back Mr. Butterworth, Mr. Dodson, Mr. Atkins.
yes,
Anybody else?
that's it.
Okay. Do I have a motion
I'll
to
make a
enter
motion.
executive session? Okay, we have a first and a second.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. While we won't make any decisions in executive session, we'll adjourn after that to adjourn the meeting. Our next council meeting is February 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you.